What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of It's the Good Life, your practical guide to adulting. I'm Anthony Chow here, joined by Josh Yee and David Hearing. We are back for another episode where we will be talking about finances yet again because it is such a packed episode, such a packed topic that we can't unpack it in just one episode.
So this is finances part 2. But before we get into it, I think I have an opening question this go around. If you could buy the most expensive thing for your hobby, what would you get? If you had unlimited money, you could soup it out with the highest expensive things for everything. Like, what would you get? I know what I would get, but I'm prompting. So, like, for example, a guitar. The best backpack, the best hiking shoes, the best rock climbing shoes. What is the model, the name, everything?
I'm trying to think about my best hobby right now.
Yeah, same. I'm trying to pull out a hobby that's not even my best hobby because I'm like
So many hobbies to choose from. Do you got one?
I don't.
No?
There's many that come up to my mind.
Like if you were at REI,
Yeah.
and you're like, that's really nice, but there's no way I'd ever get that. So, like, for example, there was a guy I met. There was a guy I met by some circumstances.
Yeah.
Who had he never played guitar, but had one of the most beautiful Martins I've ever seen in my life. It looked beautiful.
He just had it, but he didn't play?
He didn't play. He wanted to learn how to play. I was like, but you have literally the most amazing. He had literally the most amazing guitar I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And you just have it, and you're you are a basic guitar player, and I'm like,
What a waste of
I the potential is there. Trust me. And it was one of the best guitars I've ever played in my life. I don't remember exactly what the model of it was, but it just was aesthetically beautiful. It played amazing. I wanted to get it so bad, but I think it was $6,500 or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not gonna do that.
My goodness.
Yeah.
If I had all the money in the world, I think the biggest thing for me would probably be like car.
Oh, a car. Oh.
I'd probably
Aston Martin.
I would not an Aston Martin. You're getting that from because of the Martin.
Yeah. I was planning to see it there. Yeah.
I think I would just modify a really fast, aesthetically just top tier. I really love JDM.
Okay.
Japanese domestic market. Type of car. And I don't know, maybe an older 1900s type of Supra, and then just fully modified. Basically Fast and Furious 1 and 2 type vibe where you're getting just premium built, all the best things. You have nitrous twin turbo. You have all of these things that are just clear cut, custom made, and built for that specific car.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, if I had all the money in the world, of course I would. That's probably.
Of course. Wow. You say of course?
Yeah.
Of course.
So is this question what you would buy if you had the most money, or is it hobby?
Well, because I'm thinking about it it's not my favorite hobby, but I think I have an inspiration towards that. It would definitely, if I had all the money in the world, my favorite hobby would be that, because I know that that is something that I would enjoy a lot of.
I think for me, if we're going that route of being very broad and just having as much money as we can, I would think I would love to be a homeowner.
Woo.
Yeah.
That's your hobby?
Yeah.
What the heck, guys? I'm here to listen to guitar. And you guys are like, I'd get a guitar.
I mean, you asked to.
I'd get a guitar.
John's gonna be
I'd get a guitar. He's one.
You asked the question. He expanded the question.
Would you go for a craftsman? Would you do a custom build?
I wouldn't custom every room. Yeah, I want to build it from the ground up. Get to pick the windows, the detailing, the finishing, all the little I'm definitely an attention to detail guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes to every furniture, I want to be intentional about choosing each one in each room. And yeah, I feel like that would be really fun. I think a hobby that I would love to get into in the future when I had more, maybe when I'm retired, maybe cruising a little bit more with finances, is interior design.
I could totally see
being
that.
able to just curate a certain vibe.
Yeah.
Is such a, I feel cool thing to do.
Right.
And so for each room to have a certain kind of feeling when you walk into it, that would be great.
Okay.
I meant to invite people
Can
over.
I change my answer?
Fine, go ahead.
Absolutely.
I would actually get a private plane. I'm just kidding.
Private jet.
Private jet, okay.
And live in that jet.
Nice. Wait, actually?
No.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
completely joking. That's a really great thing. I could totally see that though
Yeah.
for you doing like interior design. I think that would be like an absolutely great like retirement role,
hobby,
you know,
yeah.
or like you said, if you're more like financially stable.
Yeah.
But good answers. Anyways, I think that's a interesting segue into our topic. So last episode we talked about sort of more of the concepts of finances, such as like perceptions about being generous amidst maybe not being financially stable, maybe asking for help in the midst of financial instability. But today we're going to be talking about kind of more of the practical, which is, budgeting. What is it? What's the process of getting out of debt? And I want to put a really, really, really big disclaimer. We are not financial people at all. So this is all from our own personal adulting experience. This is not something that you should take and run with. Disclaimer, big disclaimer on the board here. But we're just talking from our experiences, sort of how we've navigated, as much as we're feeling comfortable, the landscape of finances. And so I kind of want to start off with, we can get a little bit into my story about getting out of debt, but we can kind of segue through that as we're going through here. But just to kind of start with that, a big part of that season of life for me of getting out of debt came from very intentional budgeting. And so just to kind of start, what's your budgeting method? Are we thinking Excel sheet? Are we pulling the napkin off the table? Like, what's the strategy for you guys? I could go first.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Unless you want.
Your story. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, it's like I budget every week. On the same day. I budget on Sunday every single week.
How long does that take?
It takes
roughly.
Since I already know what's incoming and outgoing, it takes maybe like a half hour.
Okay.
Like at most.
That's solid.
And I use the same sheet. It's like a sticky note sheet from school, and I write down my incoming, and then my outgoing expenses, and then I do a subtotal. Like my outgoing expenses are my negative, and then my incoming is the positive, and then whatever's like, ideally it should be positive every time, right? That's what I'll kind of base on, and then from there I'll split into a generosity fund, and then I'll split into savings, and then fund money. But that depends on what's in excess. So like there have been a couple weeks ago I had to dig a little bit more because of some unexpected bills. So then I was negative. So I didn't have any money to put in my generosity fund or my fund money fund.
So you'll actually modify your current spending habits meanwhile, like when your other expenses are too much.
So if my other expenses are too much and they're not considered like emergency stuff, because I have like an emergency fund, then that will be then what I'll do there is I'll see if I could adjust like something in my budget. I mean, but the thing is, like, kind of like we talked about last episode, like I pretty much have all of my like minimum to survive expenses, on the board, right? Yeah. And so it's like, food and insurance and rent and utilities and I think you said the word accessories, which I found to be very interesting that you use that. I use the word toiletries. I was like, let me just put that. But also accessories, sure.
Yeah.
But then, my fund money and my generosity fund and then my personal savings are all dedicated as like anything additional, which I usually budget in a manner that allows me to have the capacity to do those things. Okay. So it's like I'm realistic, but I don't overestimate. Anyways, all I'd say that's kind of like in a very general sense what I do budgeting wise. Yeah.
You got that?
I mean, because people, have you heard the 50-30-20 rule?
Yes.
Have you heard the 50-30-20 rule?
I have. I do a different rule though.
Okay.
He's the 100 rule.
He's the
All in.
All in.
Like,
Nothing for-
like I know debt coming in, and I just go for it. You know.
Oh my god.
Grabbing that debt.
No food.
Just kidding, man.
100-0.
100-0 rule.
Wow,
You
so
got that?
good.
Oh wait. Okay, I
Are
thought
you-
you were serious.
No, I don't do that. No,
No, no.
absolutely not.
I just do
Dead
the
serious.
pull and pray method, you know, just
Pull
like,
and pray.
pull out cash from my
Pull and
and
pray.
pray my credit card can cover it. No, I'm kidding.
That's crazy.
I tend to have a little bit more of a looser, flexible approach.
Okay.
I think that's come with having a little bit more financial freedom, I will say.
Yeah,
Whereas before I was definitely very like month to month.
I remember that.
But then now actually having a very I budget, I log absolutely every single purchase I make the moment I make it.
Mhm.
So I have an app in my phone. It's just like a budget tracker, and it splits everything up into different sections. And so whether it's groceries or personal shopping or food, which I have as a separate category for like eating out restaurants, a generosity fund, just different things, rent. I'll log it immediately as the money leaves my like as I'm spending it. So I know exactly how much I've spent for that entire month up till this second right now. So that just gives me like a real time. I just built that habit over time. So it gives me a real time approach of like how much I'm making and then also how much I'm spending.
In each category.
In each category.
Right.
So I can see, and so like at this point I've been doing it for probably close to a year now of being like pretty religious about that. And I have the kind of ballpark to where I know how much I spend in each category. So immediately I like in the app it has which is really great. It has like a budget for each category, and it'll tell me when like I'm in the red or like I'm overspending in this category
Oh yeah.
or
I've seen
underspending
those.
in another category.
Yeah.
So that kind of and then I tend to just like be a little bit more aware of how I spend if that's the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a general sense, that's typically what I do.
Wow. Oh man, you guys are definitely.
What-
I think a
what
lot
about
more.
the 100-0?
A lot more.
Tell me about this 100-0
Yeah, tell me about
rule.
it. I've never heard this before.
No, that was my 100-0 rule. I just go all in, But no, I do not do the 100-0 rule. I don't even know if that's a rule. It probably is, but I don't.
That's
I don't think that's a
hilarious.
really good thing to follow.
So
All
funny.
in, man.
All in or all
110, in fact.
110 going to debt for
The 50-30 20
20?
rule, I
Yeah.
think is really, it's good. It's almost like a breakdown of the rule that I do, which is 80-20.
Okay.
And 80-20, this is like not just for finances, but so many other things in your life, like the amount of energy and the amount of time that you give, etc., like the work. But how I would break it down is in a very practical sense. Like if I did have to do any physical tracking of like budgeting, this is the one like very complex thing about me is I'm a very big mental person. So I like track a lot of that thing mentally. Like,
Oh, so you don't like practically write it down?
No, but I do have a digital efforts of where I put a lot of that into.
Okay, so you do have some log.
I do
for
have
it.
some logging
Okay.
for it, and one thing I really love to check is like when I was going to school, there was you have your email. Like check your email every single day, right? This is like me checking my bank every single day. So this is checking when I spend something, I'll check my bank, and it's basically like that. That's also like another log, and I'll look at like what I'm spending, and then depending on your bank, they'll also have an analyzer for you. So you can utilize that tool, and it helps me see like where I'm spending. So it saves me a lot of time when I'm budgeting on the other sides of putting that into digital efforts. But I just like the way that I'm thinking about it. When I'm talking about 80-20, I'm thinking your 20 should be the idea of what is your general sense of income, and like 20% will just be a focus of everything that's your fun for you to take care, even your necessities, and then dire needs need to be achieved or met with the 80%. So you have certain non-negotiables that you have to get through, and so that's where my 80 would go to. And then there's the other things that I'm like, oh yeah, like food's a bit of a on the fence one, because some people can get by with bread, like myself. Other people
Just
get
bread.
by with like just bread. I'm fully fine with just bread.
Yeah.
And the word of God, of course. For man does not live, on the bread alone.
Bread is the analogy for the word.
Wait, what? Bread as a
but
money?
no,
or bread,
but
bread
like
of
as
wait,
a-
No, I was making a joke. Never mind. Just keep going.
that is actually.
wait, bread can be a lot of
Let's
things.
break
though.
that
Yeah, I
down.
know.
Yes,
Make
yeah.
bread, or you make.
I'm talking about like
Making bread or
kind
getting
of
that bread?
baking
Or physical
bread
bread.
that comes from like yeast and then that type
Oh,
of deal.
okay.
Oh yeah.
Like,
so
like
real bread, like
real bread, like loaf of bread.
cool. Just making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, of course. Or just like carbs, like a bowl of rice, and then put some like furikake
Yeah.
on
You
top.
put some bread on top of that.
Super
Absolutely
simple.
not. No, that's just you're carb loading at that
Yeah,
point.
good rice with a This is a funny
Sounds
episode
like a
today.
normal meal
but-
to me.
Yeah. No, I was curious to ask. Actually, throw a statistic at you guys. Not to cut you off, David. There's a stat that says that 63% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Even
What?
some making over 100,000. Why do you think that is? Given the fact that we just talked about like budgeting style and budgeting approach, right? Why? And given are you raising your hand?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we go ahead and finish though.
No, so like given kind of what we talked about last time, right? Where we
Yeah.
talked about that sense of
That's really hot.
like where incomes, I know, sorry. Where finances, right? Like if you're making over 75,000,
Yeah.
that's technically the minimum to be for perceived happiness, right? And then from there it just like sort of slowly plateaus in terms of how much more happy you can get after that based
Yeah.
on your increased income. These people are making easily over that,
Yeah.
potentially. But why could they still be struggling? That's like the whole financial audit shown in a nutshell.
I'll be honest. I think it is the principles that really keep people in the trenches.
What do you mean by that?
Because you mentioned the 50-30-20. You mentioned the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, right? Essentially, that kind of insinuates lifestyle inflation, because the more you make, the bigger that 80% becomes. The bigger that 50%
true.
becomes. The bigger those percentage become. So the more you make, the more you tend to have to spend in that category. So all of a sudden, you're going from 1-ply toilet paper to 3-ply. And that's costing you 3 times the price.
Yeah.
But wasn't 1-ply okay before?
Well, maybe not, because you were leaving some, left over, and like the 3-ply would have been a little bit, it's a little cleaner, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's certain areas where you're willing to make that investment.
But
Wow,
you're going,
what-
well, like let me be more practical, right?
Yeah.
Like all jokes aside,
That was pretty practical.
yes, also very practical.
Yeah.
Don't try 1-ply. I did that. The Walmart 1-ply is not great, guys.
but
don't.
I think the trick is just folding over multiple
Yeah,
times.
but then you're also
times
spending.
You're spending
going
a-
to be spending more,
Right, yeah.
Right, you got to think about that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, sometimes you gotta sacrifice the finger.
Okay,
too,
well,
maybe.
buy nice or buy twice, right? Buy nice or buy twice. So, anyways, okay. So in the same way,
Yeah.
you're spending a bigger category. Say you have $200 allocated for gas money that month, right? And so you're always buying. Was like the cheapest one, 87, or was it?
I think it's 86.
86 or whatever it is. You're buying the lowest here, but all of a sudden you have a $300 budget now. Now you're gonna go for that higher tier gas. Right? It's like you were driving on that lower tier gas before, but because of that bigger percentage, now you're spending more.
But it's also like, I think the question begs in response to that is what goes into the thought process of now deciding, oh, I need the higher tier gas. You know what I mean?
I think it's the idea that, because I noticed myself, for instance, going to organics as soon as I was starting to make more money as opposed to the regular groceries. I used to shop like, I don't know, like you might be either the person that's looking for the cheapest price when you're going to the supermarket, or are you looking for like what's actually like the best for you? Because a lot of that stuff that's stocked in supermarkets, to be super transparent, is like not the best for you.
But I think that gets into another conversation
Yes, go
about financial disparities and how financial disparities how they're directly linked to health.
Oh shoot, that's
Which is
another
which is a whole different
food security
conversation.
thing, yes.
Which we could totally have another conversation after. Like this could be a whole other conversation. Is like, how do you maintain health amidst financial disparity?
Yeah.
But anyways, keep going.
I think in also another, to open up the conversation more, like we talked about spending more for like organics rather spending than regular things, but I think also that idea that like sometimes in our head, I think like the more we spend, we think we're getting a better product, right? Like it kind of makes sense, right? Like, oh, you put a little more money into it, you would think that the more expensive thing is worth a little bit, does more than what you just have, right? But I think the idea that like also in our society, I think fast food has become really cheap, and the expensive like Irwin or what is it, like Whole Foods or your Sprouts, like that's super expensive.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I don't know. It's just putting that out there and like being critical about what's going on in the world. I think seeing that as a result of also like how much money is related to your health, how much the money you spend is related to your spending habits as well.
Yeah. Well, I think this kind of gets into the topic about like financial freedom, right? Because I think that, you talk about all these things of like trying to find that balance between health and budget and trying to find that balance between generosity and budget. But I ultimately think it boils down to what does financial freedom look like? And I think that also stems from this idea of control, right? Because you could be in debt. You can be in student loans. You can be in debt, but you can also be in control. You can have a high rent, but you can also prepare for the high rent.
Yeah.
I think the problem comes is when for either financial illiteracy or maybe just a lack of discipline. I've had that in my own life. I could tell you that for sure. It's like, that's when I think finances, as David, you talked about last time, can become more controlling over you than you over it. Right. And so something that interesting stat to kind of put out there is that not only this concept of living paycheck to paycheck, but the TIAA Institute, which is a pretty well-known retirement institution, found that U.S. adults, particularly above, like millennials and older, correctly answer only 49% of questions across 8 core personal finance topics. And amongst Gen Z, that percentage goes down to 38%. So financial literacy is present and relevant in our generation more so than the generations who are older than us. And it's even found that there's a relationship between low financial illiteracy. People who have low financial literacy are twice as likely to be in debt than those who are financially literate. So there's clearly a relationship between how much you know about your finances in relation to the likelihood that you're going to be, and as this calls it, financially fragile.
Well, let me ask you guys, what is financial freedom to you?
Great question. Financial freedom, to me, I think sums up along the lines of being able to maintain the things that can sufficiently supply you life and then some. I think what financial freedom is not is when you're struggling to catch a breath and you're burdened with so many. Sorry. You're just kind of cooking.
I'm cooking, but it's so hot.
We should really move it up.
It's cool. It's cool.
You want to sit here?
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you should join. You should join.
Just join on the couch.
You're like,
join on the couch,
so
bro.
sorry.
Join on the
Audience,
couch.
Anthony's just cooking in the
Join on
sun.
the
I
couch.
cannot sit here and just watch
Join
him
on the
cook.
couch.
I need him
Join
to
on
like
the couch,
live,
man.
but you know,
it's free sauna right here. It's
Join on the couch.
free sauna.
You're
He
cooking.
says. Oh.
keep going.
I just saw the sweat coming down. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Keep going, David.
I think financial literacy is not when you have no room to breathe and a sense of wanting to do the things that you would like to in your life. I think financial freedom allows you to have this sense of enabling liberty where, yes, you can go out and make the choice to do what you want. I mean, that within itself is freedom already, right? But now to have the financial freedom, for a specific instance, you might be limited for a very fancy dinner, but if you have the money to pay for it because you're doing well off and then you've budgeted correctly, and you can feel safe about that and how that also affects after the fact that, you go to eat at a very expensive place. I think financial freedom looks something like that. It feels something like that. That can be, I mean, I hope that kind of answered the question, but for me personally, that's what I think it looks like. Having a sense of, wow, like I feel safe about the things that I don't have to worry about money asking too much of me.
What's financial freedom to you, Josh?
Financial freedom. What's interesting is I and this is kind of a good segue, is I first experienced financial freedom in debt.
What?
Yeah. Like
Wait,
a
go
like a
into
little
that
bit
a
a little bit of a
more.
little
What
bit
does
of
that
a
mean?
mind twister, because I think that it's kind of like I was saying before, financial freedom is not as much being, in my mind, it's not as much about being completely free of debt. It's about being in, and as much as you can, in control of your finances, and in being able to anticipate the challenges that finances could bring. And so when I was in debt, right, I was in a lot of personal debt, by choice. And I say that because I think a lot of people who are in debt don't think it's a choice. Sometimes it's not a choice, but it's unintentionally a choice, I think, or subconsciously a choice, right? Of, oh, I just got this, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm multiple G's in debt, and I wasn't expecting to be, right? Anyways, I was in that circumstance, and I remember that it got to a point where I said, I need to get out of this. This is not sustainable. And that was sort of like the start of the plan, the start of the game. It felt like, of how do I kind of like you guys' backpacking trip, how do I overcome this mountain that is my debt? It felt like that. Like financially, where it's like, this is just, it's too big to tackle in one day, in 1 week, and even in 1 month. It was like, this is going to take multiple months in order to tackle this. And I remember that I made like the most strict and realistic budget I can make, and I said, I'm going to follow this to the T. Like, if I spend under this budget, then I'm going to put all that towards the debt. If I spend at the budget, then great, but I'm never going to spend over it.
Cool.
And I communicated that to people. Like during Christmas, like, I really can't get anything here. Like if I do, I'm going to have to cut from my own food so that I can get something, which I did, you know? But I remember it took around 7 months of budgeting, extremely strict. I remember, I think my budget was like $1,200
Dang.
for like everything.
What?
For myself, everything. And I think that with that budget, it was really hard at first because I wasn't able to. I had lived a somewhat inflated lifestyle prior to that point. We're loose, but loose and not in a good way. Like it was just like, oh, finances will work out, but then they weren't.
Right.
They weren't financing.
Yeah.
You know. But then I felt like at first month was really difficult because it was like I went to the store and I got literally only what I needed to get by.
Yeah.
Like nothing else, no snacks, no this. It was like just what I needed. Didn't eat out one time that entire month. I cooked a lot in, which we still invited you over when we were like going through that. But we cooked and like shared that with you, right? But I remember the second and third month, there was suddenly like this perspective switch where I was like, yes, I have 4 or 5 months. I knew how many months I had left to go, assuming that the budget was maintained, right? But there was this perspective switch of I'm in control.
Yeah.
I know what's going in and out of my account. I know exactly what I intend to spend. I've already been to the store a couple of times to know what things cost to equate to this amount for food. I already know when insurance is going to be. Like, there was suddenly like, yes, I'm in debt, but I know what's happening. And I know what's going, like, kind of like you said, like you have that like log, or you said like with your phone, like you know what's going to what, and you know there's intention in that. And I could say that was I couldn't say that was financial freedom at the time because that's not what I didn't have the perspective for. But now, like once I got past that debt, and I was able to actually have like money set aside for fun. Like I was able to realize that was financial freedom the whole time because I maintained that same perspective after I was out of debt, and was able to actually enjoy the money because I was like, I already know my $1,200 is going to this.
Yeah.
Everything extra is either going to savings or to fun, and I don't have to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Or I don't have to guess. Like, I already know. And then, like, that was kind of the start of the fun money and then the start of the generosity fund, where it's like, I can spend on someone or I can spend on myself and there's no guilt. That's the freedom.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think it's interesting too. You mentioned this idea of control.
Yeah.
So
I know, and I say that with an asterisk.
yeah.
You know?
But I think it's interesting because obviously, like, biblically, the idea of giving up control as well, like living open-handedly.
Yeah.
I think I do wrestle with that, as well as this idea of like having control in a sense of having the ability to be mindful of your spending, like
Yes.
having self-control, which is a great
Yes,
right.
that's
Like,
probably
I
a
think
better word.
That
Yeah.
also is
Yeah.
there's nuance in that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, financial freedom is, I think the definition has definitely changed over the years, but I think the way I understand it now is it's simply not having to worry and not having to think about money. I think in a nutshell, it just boils down to that. Like, if I go out to eat, I don't have to worry about the bill.
Yeah.
And neither does anyone else I'm eating with.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's financial freedom. Or like people coming over, or like, God forbid, like, one day, raising a family and like your kids want to go to Disneyland, and it's like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
And let's take grandpa and grandma with us too.
Mm.
But I think also being mindful of like the spending habits that you have, of like, I don't know, your friends want to eat out at this really nice restaurant, and like being able to be like, okay, yeah, like let's go. But then also not like doing that all the time,
That's the self-control. That's
the
the
self-control
mindfulness.
part.
Yeah.
That is like, okay, I can do that, but I choose not to.
Yeah.
Right. So I think in a nutshell, like for me, that's what financial freedom. Like, yeah.
I mean, have you found in that, maybe that change of perspective since, becoming an RN, and that change of income, that you have felt more happy as a result of that?
I will say yes.
Okay.
I will say yes.
I mean, that's like the obvious answer,
Yeah.
but knowing your history personally, and like seeing the places where you were strictly budgeting and you were also bodybuilding, like I felt like there was so much growth that happened in that season. Like when you were bodybuilding and then you were still eating to bodybuild while being financially strained. Like that was a crazy season for me to be a witness of.
I think to add into that, like a lot of people don't realize how expensive bodybuilding can be. And there's a whole, I mean, that's just like just with the food itself, not to mention what it costs to pay for a trainer, what it costs to now like go into a competition. It's just to do a single division can cost you $100 to $200 just to participate. And that's even like you not even having your NPC card, which you need to pay for to even get into it. But not to get too into it, I think in a nutshell, for me, the season that I was in, I was willing to make ends meet in order to get after the goal I was after, which was getting on stage at that point in my life. And so it didn't necessarily matter it did matter what was coming out of my pocket, figuratively, out of my wallet. But I think as long as I saw that I was able to get closer to that goal within the time frame that I gave myself, because I knew that I was overspending for sure. I was in the red every month. I wasn't making enough to support the lifestyle that I was living, especially with the food I was eating and the amount I was paying my trainer. But I knew that if I could get on stage by this date, and then hopefully by then have a nursing job, then I would be like, coast was clear. So even though I was, taking a little bit of a risk, there was a little bit of risk management involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's exactly, I think, what I was getting at too, was risk management, where it's like, I think that, and this is actually a really great segue, talking about risk management, when it comes to making big purchases, which you and I have talked about recently too. So one of the things that I think is two topics that I kind of want to get into. One is emergency funds, which are exceptionally important. And secondly is the perspective and approach about credit cards and loans. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I got when I was in debt, this was like from my dad, but also like indirectly from different YouTubers and influencers who are like financial auditors, which I've mentioned 50 times in the past 2 episodes, is the fact that the banks are businesses.
Yeah.
And credit card companies are businesses. And I think that we tend to forget that, just because they're not advertised that way. And I think that the struggle that I experienced in being in very significant amounts of credit card debt was that I forgot about that. And that was taken advantage of, where all of a sudden I was like, wait, what is an interest rate? So like the financial illiteracy matched the fact that they're a business, and all of a sudden, not that I was a victim of financial literacy, but it fared against me in their favor and not in mine. And so I think that something I want to consider with you guys is first the emergency fund. In a EDU survey, they found that 40.1% of people said in the U.S. said that they couldn't cover $1,000 emergency with cash or savings. Like they did not have that enough equity in cash to cover, let's say their tire blows out or they get hit and their fender comes off and they have to spend at least $1,000 cash. Or if it's a health thing, like they don't have the capacity to do even just $1,000.
Well, that's a I think it opens up a really interesting Pandora's box as a question to. I think we were poking fun at this idea of like living every day like your last in that last episode. I think David, you mentioned you kind of brought that idea up. I think some people interpret that as like being a little spontaneous with the way they spend their money. To put it nicely. I think someone call like whether you call it being financially spontaneous.
Spontaneous.
Or being financially reckless, right? Like whether the way you see it. And I've made some pretty spontaneous purchases in my day, still do to this day. Like, for instance, for buying a 3-day ticket to Disneyland, like just off the whim, because me and my friend wanted to go, which was a lot of fun. But then I think there also is like the realization of like, okay, there's some part of me that like wants to just have fun and just to do things now, which is this idea of like instant gratification. But then the question I want to ask you guys, right, is how do you live a life that is joyful in the moment, right, is gratifying right now, but also serves to put you in a good financial place in the future? How do you go about living your life, making those decisions, right? Because that comes down and boils down to how you decide whether you're going to buy A or B today, right? So it just to pose a very real practical question towards you guys, and maybe as you as a listener too, to think about this.
I think the first thing that pops up in my head was what we mentioned first episode on just finances in general, the practical essence, etc. was what, like, the different types of richness. Like, really, what does that mean then? Are we talking about richness just in finances, or does it also mean that you can be rich emotionally, socially, spiritually, etc., etc.? And I think that's what it comes down to for me. How I'm taking this wonderful question and responding to it is the satisfaction, the contentment, the joy that I can find, although I don't have all the money in the world or a lot of money. And the good thing about Christ being in my life is that he allows us to, at least for me, see that I don't need to have that met, but rather just enough in all of these smaller little instances, like a tiny little birthday party for me looks like having maybe 3 of my closest friends and then a cupcake with 1 candle in it, and you're just singing happy birthday, and you're gonna share, even if everyone has like work tomorrow early morning, I'll spend 1 hour with them. That brings me so much joy. This is my response to this question, because my thing is that saves you so much on money, but it brings you the satisfaction of the world. And I think that's what we're looking for, is something very gut-wrenching, something very heart-touching, soul
diving that it's like, okay, this experience, that's what I'm looking for. But the thing is, like, people, once again, the association is you pay a high cost, you get the association of something so ecstatic and lifted up in praise, and it's like, wow, this feels great. But the thing is, you can spend $10 and get just as much of a really good meal or an experience,
Yeah,
depending how well you spend that amount of money.
that's good.
So
Yeah.
I mean, even extension of that is like,
Yeah.
you guys going backpacking, did you have to pay for that? I mean, besides your food.
Dude, it's such a budget friendly hobby.
yeah,
Like,
uh-huh.
yeah, go ahead.
That's all I want to say.
Such a budget friendly hobby, just leave. No, it's like the richness was the experience.
Yes.
Is
all-
what you're
yeah,
saying, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and what I'm hearing you say is that you don't have to pay a pretty dime to have a rich life. Is what I'm hearing you say in a nutshell,
Yeah.
right?
I think I want to hear your side of it as well. I think
That's what
I
I'm
do.
hearing.
I want to also throw in the idea that I think money can buy certain experiences that not having money can't.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that is where I began to lean towards as I started understanding like the value of money in terms of like the way it gives you access to materialistic things,
Mm-hmm.
but then the way it also gives you experience. It gives you access to experiential things. Right, like flying yourself to another state and enjoying the ambiance of that space.
Yeah.
Things that you wouldn't be able to do because you can't travel there without having money unless you're doing, I don't
Right.
know, like a road trip or something, which would still require a lot of gas money.
Right.
Right. So I think that nuance too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I say that because I think that our culture would say that only that is true. That like you can only experience life if you are
Finer things in life.
Yes. Like life is only good if you are experimental, if you are experiential as an outcome of finances. But I think what David is saying is that
good.
both are true. Is that richness in the midst of maybe not financial richness, or finding the richness in just experiences that may not require money to have, like walking outside, like there's richness in that.
Right.
Working out, there's richness in that, right? But what you're saying too is like finances are also a means to do that. They're both lanes that you can experience life more fully.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you, I think, do you think a budget-friendly birthday party, David, that you mentioned, is going to provide you with the same amount of happiness as a $10,000 birthday party? And there's a lot of, I think, background context to that.
Yeah.
But just to ask you that question, do you think one would provide you with more happiness than the other if you had a little bit more in your budget to spend on like a $10,000 birthday party that you were throwing?
Oh, that's a tough question for me, because I think what I'm thinking right now in my mind is I don't know what a $10,000 birthday looks like. I've never been
Let's
around.
just say you're able to spend
you
on
know, that
whatever
much
you
money.
wanted.
Yeah.
Whatever you wanted, and invite whoever you wanted.
That's great.
Get the DJ.
Right.
Everything.
If that was the case, I think then simply off of my mind, yes, there would be one. I don't know which one, maybe right now, but I think one of those would be probably a little bit more of a happy experience for me.
Yeah.
Right. I can't pinpoint one, but I'm leaning really towards like,
You're being humble, Dave. I'm just kidding.
seriously. I
Wait,
love
like,
it
actually,
a lot.
You think so it's hard for you to actually.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think the best thing for me though is like I don't want to go out of my uncomfort zone, or what's called comfort zone, and approach uncertainty and say like, yeah, I think the $10,000 birthday party would like make me a lot more happier than what I'm at now, because I'm very familiar with like, you know, what I have now with the not as much money and, you know, really trying to budget, and I'm okay with those 3 friends and then having like, you know, a very
Single cupcake with a
single cupcake and whatnot. But you know, I think a really good question to also think about too is like, how about we ask all the rich people in the world, right? Ask them that same question. Like, would you sit down and enjoy your birthday celebration with your 3 closest friends or family members and a tiny little cake, spend $100 on that, and pay $100 for a cake, but then have your closest people to you, or spend 20,000,
I was like, that's
50,000.
expensive.
It's a nice cake.
I was like,
It is nice. Well, because you're rich. If you're rich, you have money.
No,
Or this rich person,
Yeah.
they can spend 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand on their birthday. And I really asked them that question, like, do you think you'd have more happiness or a better sense of satisfaction from option A or option B? And I think there would be a lot that would reckon they probably would see, because they have a lot more on the financial literate and more substantial side of having and self-controlling their money more better, that they'd be like, okay, actually maybe option A might be better for me. But others would also probably fight and argue that no, like spending more money, you get all the benefits, etc. It's in for me, and it's like that's what makes it all the better. But I think why it's worth asking, statistically, a wide range, if we had to, of rich people, because then we would get an understanding then of, okay, with people of money, what are they looking as to see what is more valuable?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. No, I think that these are all really good points when it comes to conceptualizing how money is an avenue for life. And I think that this is sort of pushing against, kind of giving an alternative perspective to the narrative that we talked about last episode, which was like pushing against the narrative that talking about the narrative like money is the source of all evil and all that stuff. But then it's like also interesting to see us talking about the flip side of that, where like this is how God uses money for his good, for our benefit and for our growth and our development. Because I think I can name numerous experiences in my life that would not have happened had the finances not been there.
Yeah.
Or at least had I not taken the risk to pursue those things. And but either way, I will say though, less money when it comes to even just something like a birthday, I think it forces us to find the value in what other things life can offer, right? So like you were kind of saying that indirectly, right? Where you're talking about relationships and you're saying it's interesting how you would pose to a rich person that way, because the implication is, would you rather have the ability to experience your relationships more fully because the finances aren't inflating the experience? Or would you rather have an inflated birthday experience?
Yeah,
right. And so I think that in my experience in the past of celebrating with people in a budget-friendly manner, if you would, those are sometimes some of the best birthdays.
Yeah.
And so, just thinking about those things, I think it's all really important. Are you good?
I think that's good.
Okay. But I think we're just kind of we're on the way of wrapping this up. Just some sort of concluding thoughts. I know we couldn't get to everything, but just speaking about the you can go ahead. Just speaking about the value of looking at our finances differently. I guess one question or kind of thing I'm interested to ask you about is talking about this idea of stress about finances. Finances, especially when they're not going well, can be really stressful. It can be life-altering. And I think that, honestly, in my experience, you can kind of sink or swim when it comes to the reality and outcomes of your finances, right? In my particular story, I found that I grew exponentially more as a result of that difficult financial experience, right? I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I'm capable of in terms of discipline, which has, that sort of discipline has offloaded into school, has offloaded into working out, has offloaded into nutrition, right? But it all stemmed from that initial experience of being in financial struggle and seeing a need that I needed to change my life for, and stepping up to that need and actually growing from it. So I think just sort of as sort of a concluding question, And I think I had prompted this earlier with you guys. But what is one rule that if you could leave our listeners with, one rule to follow? Obviously, there's more than that that's out there, but one rule that they could follow when it comes to their practical finances, what would it be?
All right, I'll go first.
Come on, David.
I would say one practical rule is know the difference between saving and investing and the moments to choose which one to do. Yeah.
That's good. I think it's kind of a 2-in-1 here. Maybe I'm cheating, but
Come on, cheat. 2-in-1.
I think the one is remember where your money is from.
Mm.
And I think the part of that is the fact that we can't take any of it when we die.
Oh yeah.
And as much as that's obvious and, you know, kind of a no-duh statement, I think that we often forget that. And we think that going to the grave with $100 million in our bank is, you know, like, I think that there's a funny, like, idea of, like, dying with $0, right? Like, spending everything to the last cent, right, before you die. Because none of that's going to go with you, right? But in doing so, I think the second part of knowing where your money comes from and using that knowledge of knowing where that comes from and that it's not yours, that everything comes from God, right? To let that be your moral compass or financial compass, if you will, to guide you to make those financial decisions. Because every financial decision, I'm not going to tell you, like, you should buy the Lambo or you shouldn't, right? Or, like, you should buy the, you know, JDM car or you shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
That's for you to decide. But I think with that in mind of knowing where your money comes from, you're not spending your money on that JDM car. You're spending God's money.
Yeah.
How would he feel about you putting money on that car, right? Like, just put it out there like that.
Anything.
Or anything in life.
Yeah,
like,
that's not.
Like, what would it be like if,
Yeah.
you know, would God spend his money on an LV wallet? Maybe, you know? That might
Yeah.
be kind of cool. Maybe.
God's like, let me splurge right now.
But, like, to put that in consideration, like, and ask that, you know, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Come on.
But, yeah, you want to close off?
Yeah, I'll close this off. I guess one I would give is set aside money to spend for other people. That's been probably the best. That has probably been the best thing that I've done financially in a long time. Besides, like, getting out of debt, because I feel guilt-free spending money on other people, and it is such an amazing thing to be generous. I think it's a very undervalued gift, and so setting aside money intentionally for that makes it all the easier to do that. Anyways, I'll pray us out. Lord, you're so good. Thank you for just being a provider. I think sometimes in our lives we in our own success forget that you are the first provider. You're the great provider of finances, of life, of freedom. And so I just pray that for anyone listening who is maybe in financial strain, or feeling the weight of their sin, either spiritually or financially, and just in the burdens and depth that can feel, that they would just understand and know that the Lord is the great Redeemer in those spaces, and that they can find true freedom financially, spiritually in Him. Thank you for these two wonderful people I have the gift of doing this with, and just pray that we can continue to lean into the truths that you have for us in the next episodes to come. You're so good. We thank you for this time. Amen.
Amen. Righty. That is going to be episode 13. Thank you guys so much for watching. Loved having you guys here. Like, comment, subscribe, and it really helps us push the message out to a greater audience. Hopefully you guys find something really practical here. I think that's what we always strive to do, is to make everything just practical and, like, teach from our own personal life experiences.
Come on.
And so it's been so good. We'll see you guys in the next one.